Welcome to a late night edition of TDS Film Room. Some would say TDS After Dark.
Oh,
After what was it? Just an absolute epic game by the Lightning where they, give up 3 goals in I think 28 seconds in the second period. Get one back in the third and then win in overtime. Game 7 on Saturday. Let's go. But man, it would have been a real Seth, you said it before we started, man. It would have been real depressing, this podcast here, as we break down new USF quarterback Gerry Bohanon as he transfers from Baylor. It would have been real depressing if the other result happened. So luckily it didn't for us and for our viewers. But let's jump right into it. Gary's a big dude. Yes, he transfers from Baylor. He's 6'3", 221, threw for over 2,200 yards last season, led Baylor to a 12-2 record, won the Big 12, won the Sugar Bowl over Ole Miss, 18 touchdowns, 17 interceptions, added 9 rushing touchdowns as well, completed over 62% of his passes. At first blush, Seth, what kind of stood out to you as you kind of started to break down the film?
He was a little bit better thrower at times than I thought, just kind of what I read and heard. I talked to some people that are Big 12 people, and they said he's kind of a guy that he's competent, but they didn't think he was like spectacular. But I thought he can make some plays happen with his arms and his legs. We're kind of going to go through. But the way they described him is kind of what I thought. Wouldn't be the worst thing at USF. They kind of said he's a guy that can make the plays that are there. He may not make anything more happen, but the plays that are there, he'll make them, which that'd be all right. We would have taken that last couple of years when you have guys running open deep. You hit them, but it probably changes a few games you've got. So we'll start kind of watching him we'll watch him in the passing game, and they'll kind of roll through it here. It's not going to be crazy, but we'll start with kind of the quick game stuff. You see here, they're just running slant flat. Pretty good throw there against Oklahoma. This is just that's an easy throw right there with a one-on-one. But he's not bad in the quick game here. You'll see he makes pretty quick decisions, gets the ball out of his hands. I think he had some similar receivers a little bit at Baylor. He had some guys that had some catch and run ability. I think USF does. I think you saw Tyquan Thornton got drafted. There he is right there. He's able to he's got a lot of speed. Taller guy, but Jimmy Horn kind of has a similar speed. Maybe body type of a Xavier Weaver. But here's him taking a slant to the house to open the game against West Virginia, which was his best game of the year. Then again, this is something we saw. You'll see this from USF last year. I think we might have even seen in the spring game, where you're just going to send the back out wide and have the receiver kind of hook up after the first guy, and you're really just making him make a decision. So right here, quick, get the ball on the receiver, get him a chance to do something after the catch. So I thought for the most part he was decisive. There's a couple times you'll see later on where he maybe locks on a little bit. But I think he's a pretty good passer here. You'll see some once we get to more of the downfield stuff, he drops some nice throws in. But he's got some talent. And I got 3 games. I got Oklahoma, BYU, and West Virginia. Oklahoma, he played all right. Here you see they're running like a mesh concept. He ends up waiting to hit the guy that comes over the ball. So you have 2 receivers crossing, one from this side, one from that side, and you have one come over the ball. That's kind of the third look here, depending on how you teach it. So he's able to kind of get through his progression here and find the guy over the ball. That's one thing in the drop back stuff. You see him, it's not always the first thing he sees. He's able to get through the progression a little bit at times. He does a good job getting out of the pocket, keeping his eyes downfield, making a throw. This is that same concept, right? You see this is the same mesh with a guy over the ball, except they got like probably an out cut up there to where if the corner's off, he can take that if he wants it. So good decision. He takes it, puts it on him for a first down. able to kind of find the throw here. Not a super highlight, but kind of able to hang in the pocket, win right there on a jerk route. Mesh again. And this is one I like because he's able to kind of navigate the pocket. I thought he does a pretty good job navigating the pocket, step up, keep his eyes on his guy, get him a catchable ball where he can turn and run with it on that same mesh concept we just talked about earlier. And then he had some good throws down the field. There's like kind of a little back shoulder throw. This is another kind of, this is against BYU here. Tight end down the seam there. Give him a chance to make a play there. Good catch by the tight end. Then a fourth down here. You're going to see another ball in the seam. Again, gives his guy a chance to make the play. He does extend the drive there. I like this one. You see he's kind of looking deep. He checks it down late to his tight end. He doesn't force it deep. This is one of his better throws. You see him look the safety off here. Right, looks this way. Holds the safety there. Right, this safety. Held him that way with his eyes. Comes back. Drops it in right there. Pretty good throw against good coverage there. Again, not his first option right here. So this looks like a drive concept to me. So you're gonna have one go vertical, one come shallow, and you probably got something on over here. Like you could have a variety of routes over there. But you see this backer starts to take the shallow. So now I can come to the dig coming behind him. Good job getting to it. Throws it right over the ref's head for a first down there. Then this is kind of the RPO stuff. We'll see the lines blocking run plays, and he's got the option to pull it depending on the defense's leverage. Pretty good decision maker getting the ball out of his hand with depending on the corner's leverage. Right there with the rush in his face. Completes the ball for a touchdown. Again, RPO, making good decisions, getting the ball out of your hands if the corner's soft. So this is mostly decision-making and catchable throws here. So that's kind of what you're looking for in the RPO game. And then this, I think, is maybe where he's at his best, is off play action, which I think USF will be a heavy play action team. You see here, doesn't hit the deep shot, able to kind of come down to a secondary route. Play action, the goal line really sells the run, gets the ball out of his hands. Here, it's a deep crosser on play action. These are the kind of throws that USF's just missed the last few years, that if he's a guy that come and complete these, then you're going to have some really, really big plays. Again, sell it, really sell it. You get a guy wide open, just kind of selling with your ball handling. That's another thing he does really well. Really good ball handler in terms of making play fakes and stuff like that. Here again, you see him kind of drop it down and not force it deep. And this was one of his better throws here, but hard play action. It's move in the pocket. Take a shot downfield, hit the receiver in stride for a big play. Another one, sell the play action off the jet motion. Hit the tight end and stride up the sideline. So really good play. And then he can take off and scramble. He's got some athleticism. Here's him against Oklahoma, scrambling off a drop back pass. Same game, drops back, sees the coverage, takes off, scores. And then they did a lot of design runs with him against Oklahoma as well, but they did a lot of design runs with him in general. So you can kind of see he's a big dude. He's got some athleticism. He's not, he's not slight. He's a big guy, but he can move, and he's not easily tackled. You see him run through some arm tackles there. That's kind of a consistent theme with him. He's a good runner. I think he's a good enough passer to hurt people, and he's really good off play action. Now you see the real celebrities here. I'd get in trouble with my wife if I didn't mention you got Chip and Joanne up here, So Don't want to get yelled at. But they designed a ton of runs for him, especially in the red zone, I think, because he's a big, strong dude. He was able to handle it. Here against West Virginia, doesn't score, gets the ball down to 1, and then they just have him sneak it in the next play. But he's a sturdy guy, so he can kind of take these beatings down in there. So that's always good to see. And then I thought he's a really good ball handler in terms of fakes and stuff like that. Here you can see him able to get this option pitch off even with under duress. Great pitch because you got a really good play out there if you can get it out, and he does. And then here, just like these little screens, just getting the ball out there, like in traffic, having to change your arm angle a little bit. Just get it to him. You have a good play if you get the ball in his hands. So he's got a little bit of like a little savvy to his game, I think. Here's kind of similar. I think we saw Timmy do something like this last year as well. You kind of step up, get the ball to your hand to your tight end. So that was kind of like deja vu there. But he's not perfect. Here's one he's got early against Oklahoma that he misses. I think he kind of tries to anticipate the throw and misses it. That's got to be, you got to make that throw there. Here's one where he kind of stares down his receiver here. I think he should be looking here. Once this guy works there, they're running like a stick concept up here. So once this guy works here, he should just kind of lock on here. This is the same route he threw the touchdown on earlier. I think he tries to just see if he can fit it in there, where he'd much rather just take this one right here for the first down. Kind of gets lucky there. It doesn't get intercepted. Kind of the first one, the touchdown could have also been intercepted. This is when he throws a pick on. I think this one's actually the receiver's fault. There's a better view of it. It's hard to see. But once this defender turns and runs, the receiver kind of stops because he thinks he's going to get collisioned. Bohanon just throws it to a spot, and the receiver actually stops running. So kind of an unlucky one. But then you'll see one here. This is a tough one because it's fourth down. But, take off, try to run maybe. He just tries to force it in there into bad coverage early against BYU, takes points off the boards. But again, it's fourth down. You can't exactly throw it out the back of the end zone. But maybe try something else here. So that's kind of the downside. But the upside is you see he can do quite a bit for you in the passing game and the running game. So that's it in terms of the film.
Perfect. So Seth, what you mentioned toward the end there, kind of he did the throwing out of the back of the end zone kind of scenario, kind of a bugaboo, so to speak, for him there, and as well as Timmy a few times during the season last year. We kind of discussed maybe it was coaching, maybe it wasn't. Like as a former quarterback, what are you taught, and then like how do you distinguish? Okay, well now it's like live bullets. Now is it just like muscle memory at that point? Like you've got to be able to remember what you're doing as you've got people flying around you.
Well, like for that last one, if it's fourth down, I'd rather him force the ball into somebody than like sit back and eat a sack. Like it's fourth down. If we don't convert, they're getting the ball back anyway. So it doesn't hurt you quite as much. To whereas like Timmy's was like first or second down, and now you're running the clock out. Like, that if it was the last play of the game and Timmy tried to make something happen and got sacked, then then it's something different. But like I think those are kind of separate situations. I don't even mind him throwing it in it, but there's got to be a better option than trying to force that thing in there. I'm kind of giving him the benefit of the doubt and talking about it being fourth down. Maybe he was just like, whatever, because his other two routes on the side were kind of covered. So maybe just like, hey, I'll just try to see if I can get it up high and this guy can make a play. But there's probably a better decision to be made because he had time to throw. But it's not the worst decision in the world. Yeah.
And I don't want to put, wet blanket or cold water on the fan base. Cause I mean, this is by all accounts, it's a very exciting thing to happen for a program where you have basically a proven winner decide that, okay, I can help you win here now. I've got 2 years left. I'm kind of on the precipice of maybe thinking about the NFL draft, and I think this is the program I want to be at going forward. You mentioned you thought he was a better passer than maybe you had initially thought as you kind of went through it. What's maybe one or two things that you want to see him improve upon from, the Sugar Bowl to, BYU September 3rd?
So I think he's still got to get a little more consistent in the passing game. There's some easy throws. We showed one that he missed, but he also hasn't been playing a ton. He hasn't played a ton. So last year was kind of his first full year playing. What he does really well is throw off play action and kind of he did a good job in the games. And now I only watched 3 games as well. So, he maybe in other games he played better. I know he played worse than some. I tried to get the TCU game, but for whatever reason, it would not download like in the 4 times I tried. So we didn't get the TCU game. But in the Texas game, he also had his issues to me when I watched. It seemed to be him trying to force things. When he kind of played within the offense, I thought he was pretty good, especially off play action. He was able to hit some of those shots down the field you saw and really take advantage of people coming up to defend the run, because they were so run heavy at times, which I think you may see at USF. So if you have a guy that can hit those deep shots over the top, I think that would really add another element to the offense that's been missing the last couple of years.
Yeah, and you showed a few of the designed runs, and it looked like, a couple of tight ends kind of getting out there and being a lead blocker, so to speak. With the personnel that's on campus right now, is there the talent enough for the tight end to get to that second level to be that lead blocker on those design like veer sweeps for him, because he was very effective. He's a big, as you mentioned, man, he's a big runner, and you get him going downhill with a full head of steam, and he's tough. An arm tackle's not going to get him down there.
Yeah, he's a totally different runner than like Timmy is. He's a big body. What I think could be interesting about this addition, and Eddie's asking do we think he's going to be QB1? I think he's got a really good chance to be, but even if he's not for some reason, right? Which now you've got 2, you feel pretty good with your quarterback room. Now maybe we see more running from Timmy too. If Timmy is the guy, because now you feel pretty good. Like, I got somebody behind him that can play if something happens. Where I think at times last year you felt like if Timmy got hurt, the offense was going to go in the toilet. And so maybe you didn't run him as much as you maybe could have. And that kind of could have been scheme last year too. But I think you've got the talent on the roster at the skill positions to do a lot of different things. I think we said it I went back and watched the end of the spring game, what we said, and we kind of said if they get the quarterback position figured out, they're really good at the skill positions. So this kind of gives you kind of another arrow in the quiver, so to speak, to get that figured out. But I think they've got the talent at the skill positions and those different groups to do a lot of different things. If the offensive line kind of takes that next step, we all think they will just because of how much experience they have. And then the quarterback kind of gets figured out. And I think you could have a pretty good offense this year with what they have coming back.
Yeah, you mentioned that offensive line, you bring back experience. I saw Demetrius Harris graduated with his master's this week or last week, and I saw him. He posted like a status update on Twitter, basically saying he got his bachelor's in 2020, December of 2020. He got his master's, and he's still playing football here. It's pretty remarkable. I mean, these are seasoned guys along the offensive line, basically left to right. I mean, these guys have been in the system at least 2 years. Some have been in the system for close to 6. So, at least within the program, so to speak. But we said it, man. If they figured out the quarterback position, this could be a fun team. And I think they left the spring game much like we did, thinking, man, if we can find out who the quarterback is, we can really compete for 6 wins. And I, had that tongue-in-cheek kind of tweet, earlier this evening, kind of discussing, the Bucks and Bulls home schedule slate, because that affects, if USF can paint the end zones, because there's the NFL rule you can't redo end zones or tear up the end zone grass. I think it's like 48 hours or 72 hours before an NFL game. That only happens once this year, but it happens once during the season, and then once the AAC title game. So if USF hosts the title game on December 3rd, we'll have to figure out how we can get around those NFL rules so they can paint the field for it. So that's 6 wins is definitely
let's relax.
It was very, very tongue in cheek, but 6 wins is very much more realistic than it was 3.5 weeks ago.
Yeah, I think so. It's just that the schedule is still really tough. Like there are some of the games you're playing this year, you weren't like a little bit better quarterback away from winning. But there are some that you thought, well, maybe were toss-ups that you probably feel a lot better about now. Like I feel you'd have to feel if whoever wins the quarterback battle, if they're both playing really well, you got to feel pretty good about the Tulsas, the Temples, the Tulanes, the ECUs. You got to feel pretty good about those. And then all you need to do there is like sneak a win, win your FCS game, sneak a win somewhere else, and then you're at 6, right? So
yeah,
I think that it definitely it puts you on the borderline. So you could be looking at it. I think the schedule is still really tough, and they still may start really slow regardless who the quarterback is, because I think BYU is probably going to be really good on offense. So that'll be a big test for the defense to start. And then I'm not sure what they're bringing back defensively, but I think just going back and watching them against Baylor, I think they bring like everybody back on offense. So they're going to have a good offense. That'll be a tough one. Florida at Florida will be tough. And then Louisville, I don't think that'll be an easy game either. So it's a tough out of conference schedule. But if you can sneak one of those or sneak one against Cincinnati, Houston, or Central Florida, then I think those other 5, you got 5 other really winnable games. So I think it's up there. I think this was also an option if Timmy just made it made an improvement too. So
right,
this was an option for the team, but they have to kind of go out and make good on the promise they've showed, which they haven't quite done the last couple of years, but they've gotten better. So hopefully this year they can take that next step. Yeah,
absolutely. And USF may still, start the season 1-3 because, as you mentioned, that schedule is really tough. They open with BYU, then they get Howard, and then they're on the road at Florida, at Louisville to start the season. It's a really tough slate. So, don't be surprised if they're still trying to find their footing with a new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator, maybe a brand new quarterback, kind of figuring out and calling the shots. It's still a tough schedule. Now, if they sneak one, that's fine. But if you're 1-3 after your first 4 games, it's not the end of the world, because damn, it's still a really tough schedule.
Yeah, that's kind of holding serve to me. If you're 1-3,
right?
That's just kind of like what you'd expect. BYU, I don't know if they have like a singular player, but like Florida and Louisville's quarterback are both like top 15 in Heisman odds or something close to that before the start of the season. Malik Cunningham's really, really good quarterback. A lot of people don't talk about it. Louisville, he's, at least statistically, he's had some really good seasons. That's kind of get lost in the shuffle, but they'll be tough. But I think it definitely takes you out from kind of the bottom middle to middle of the conference. Really got a chance, I think, to win at least 4 conference games. You got a real good chance of that. If you can win 5, probably go bowling. So
yeah, and I think a lot of people are kind of still stuck on, because I've heard multiple people saying, well, they can beat Louisville. This isn't the Louisville of like 3, 4, 5 years ago. Like they've kind of started to turn the corner a little bit, at least from the outside. Maybe it's not nearly as
they know their coach isn't trying to leave, right? So that helps.
That does help. That helps with some stability, and then they've figured out the quarterback, Malik Cunningham, as you mentioned. He's electric. If you guys watch that Central Florida game, right?
Yeah,
I'm not losing my mind.
Yeah, the pick six,
the pick six,
or the pick and the injury at the end of the game.
Yeah, like he was pretty good.
Yeah,
and I believe it was raining that night, if I'm not mistaken. Like, it was tough conditions. He was always exciting. I think he was kind of always what I thought. The UCLA quarterback, what's his name?
DTR.
I thought
Dwayne Thompson Robinson.
Yeah, I thought DTR could get to Malik's. Like, I thought that would be the level that he could get to, and he was fine, but Malik Cunningham's a different cat. Like, he's very good, and BYU's always well coached. Florida has a great quarterback, and I think USF plays quite a few good quarterbacks throughout the rest of the year as well. So it's not just the first 4 games. So
last year Malik Cunningham threw for 2,941 yards, 19 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and ran for 1,031 yards with 20 touchdowns.
Decent.
Yeah. So he's. I think that's kind of going to be a sneaky tough game, especially on the road.
Yeah.
But if they somehow can steal one of those, like, they've got 6 games that are really, really tough, right? Or 5 or 6 or 7 games that are really tough. And if they can sneak one of those, then they're in business. So
I agree. Is there anything from the comments? Anything? Let's see. Kevin's kind of mentioned, Gary's leadership, and we kind of talked about it when we did the podcast. Was it last week when the news broke? I can't even remember. Sunday. I don't even remember.
Yeah, Mother's Day.
It was Mother's Day. That's what it was. It's like coaches, right? If the fan base is not really sad that the person's leaving, that's probably a pretty good indication that they weren't really good. But it seemed like a lot of people had a lot of respect for what Gerry was able to do at Baylor, and it was kind of sad to see him go, and are wishing him well. They're not, like in Dylan Gabriel's mentions, talking about his sock collection or his other interests. They were wishing him well, and I think that's a good. It's a decent sign. I'm not saying that this is the end all be all, but it's a decent sign to see that, okay, this guy was actually kind of liked and maybe showed some leadership skill on a 12-1 team.
Yeah, and I think Dave Aranda would even kind of mention that he would get in before everybody for workouts. Like, he'd get in at 5:30 in the morning before anybody else was there for workouts. Even during the spring when he was kind of in the quarterback competition, it was still the same thing. He was like the first guy in every week or every day. So that's kind of a good, at worst case scenario with him, you're bringing in a guy with really good leadership. If he can't play a lick, he can kind of mentor the young quarterbacks and kind of show them how to set an example. So if that's the worst thing that happens, you're still getting value out of the guy. I think he can play a little bit, so I don't think we're there. But but that just worst case scenario, you're bringing in another great guy to kind of help teach those younger guys how to be kind of a mature upperclassman quarterback, what you need to do, what kind of stuff is required.
And what's really exciting at least for me, and as a fan of USF for 22 years at this point, they never really had that big, stocky, mobile quarterback. They always had the short, quick guy. Matt Grothy's maybe a hair over 6 foot. BJ Daniels a hair over 6 foot. Quentin Flowers maybe 6 foot. And so get like the prototypical like new school mobile quarterback in 2022. It's kind of exciting to see and to think what that can unlock in a playbook for Trickett and for Jeff Scott, they've dealt with big mobile quarterbacks. Deshaun Watson was a pretty big mobile quarterback. Trevor Lawrence maybe not as mobile, but he was 6'3", 6'4", something like that.
He looked pretty good against Ohio State on that one run.
Yeah, so like it's exciting to see what they'd be able to do with someone like that.
And his injury last year was like hamstring, so it's not like he got hurt taking hits. It was It was like a tight hamstring issue. So I think he's pretty durable. I know Colin has said a bunch of times in our Slack mentioned how tough this guy is, and he's heard from other people this guy's really tough. So yeah, he's a guy that can kind of take that pounding in the run game if you need him to. So yeah, I think contained optimism is a good. I mean, you're optimistic, but you got to see it on. I think watching his numbers and kind of watching him play a little bit, you can see the good side, and we typically try to think optimistically. But then you're always thinking, well, he lost the job, so why did he lose it? I think we are cautiously optimistic about him. I think they
absolutely
probably wouldn't have dipped into the portal if they didn't feel pretty good about him, because it is kind of a disruptive thing to do, right?
Yeah, absolutely it is. When you've got a guy who went into the portal and came back because you told him, hey, you're going to compete for this job, and then after spring you're like, we may need to bring in another guy,
and you're committed. Yeah, you're going to be committed, and he committed to being committed. And then, all right, well, we're going to get somebody else too. So, no, it's not. I don't think it was an easy decision. So the fact they did it would probably lend to them feeling pretty good about him.
Yeah.
So that's also another reason for optimism. But we got to see it on the field.
Exactly. That we've got to see it. In the as we talked about, in the abstract, skill positions infinitely better, but you got to be able to put it on film together all at the same time. We had the spurts. Jimmy Horn would have a 100-yard game, Brian Petit would have a 100-yard game, Jaron Mangan would vulture like 16 touchdowns, but it just never continually stacked on to each other. God bless him, Latrell Williams, kind of the forgotten man in the wide receiver room. FAMU 45-yard pitch and catch, and he's running down the field, tears his ACL on the tackle, and it just kind of one thing after another. For the last couple of years for USF, let's get on the same page. Let's see the building blocks continue to happen, and who knows what the end result is going to be, but at least they're putting their best foot forward, right? It's
yeah, I mean, it shows. I think that what the offense needs is they just need somebody to get the guys the ball. Like they're gonna, and I think that's what Trickett seems to be, a guy that's gonna get like we talked in the spring game. Horn had 5 touches in the first 2 drives. Like he would go 2 games last year sometimes without having 5 touches, and that was like a fireable offense. But so I think he's going to scheme up ways to get guys the ball. They just need somebody to deliver it to them. And I think, Bohanon seems to be that guy. From what I was told by a couple of different guys tonight, that he's a guy that can make the plays that are there. He may not make a bunch of extra stuff happen. I don't know. On film, I saw some extra stuff, so I don't know. But he can at least make the plays that are there. And I think that if that's what you get from him, you'll be really happy.
Yeah, I think I feel bad saying this because I'm 5'9" on a good day, but like having a taller quarterback, those inside slants, that the mesh concepts, I think you're able to see over the offensive line a bit better, and I think we're seeing that in the NFL as well. Like Kyler Murray can be as athletic as you want to be, but if your passes keep getting batted down the line, or you can't run those inside concepts, it really hinders what you can do offensively. And you're seeing, Anthony Richardson, he's a big dude too, right?
6'3", 6'4", 240 or something like that.
I think you're kind of seeing the adjustment. I think it's just kind of how kids are growing up these days, right? They're becoming the 6'3" guy who can run a 4.4. They're not the 6-foot guy who can run a 4.4 and you just throw him back there a quarterback because he's an athlete. Yeah. I think it's more strategized these days. Okay, well you're going to be like 6'2", 6'3". You're athletic. You've got an arm. Let's mold you into being a quarterback. And I think that's what we're seeing a lot in college these days. We're not. Maybe I'm completely wrong on this, but you see the shorter quarterbacks kind of struggle, long term. And I don't want to be heightist. I would hate to be a heightist, but it goes back to, man, I'm excited to see what a 6'3" mobile quarterback can do at USF. It's just, it hasn't hasn't been a thing ever.
Yeah, I'm really like you. I'm excited to see what he brings to the table, and maybe he just makes Timmy take his game to the next level, and Timmy's the starter. I don't know. I think they probably brought this guy in to start, but we'll see. I'm sure it won't just be given to him,
Mm-hmm.
but he does a lot of good things. I think he's a good decision maker. You see him get through reads. He's not just throwing his first read every time. He's getting sometimes to the second and third read on things. And a guy like that, I think, can really help this offense move along. And like you said, he has that kind of inside run element as well, just because he's a big, strong dude. So,
yep.
A worthy pickup, I think.
Yeah, I think so. So USF has never had a 1,000-yard receiver. Does this change if you had to place a dollar on yes or no, USF has a 1,000-yard receiver, does this move affect your decision any more, or is it still there's a lot of mouths to feed in this offense it's just maybe the offense isn't quite good enough yet to even think about it?
Yeah, I don't know. I think they'll spread the ball around, I would guess. I don't know if anybody will get enough touches to get 1,000, but they've got some guys that are explosive, so they may. I don't know. Like Jimmy Horn's a guy that could, pop off for some huge catches that they could get him close to that number. I would say I would lean towards no, just because I think they're going to spread the ball around because they've got a bunch of good players. I don't know if they'll feed one guy just over and over and over, but maybe they do. I'll have to go back and look at kind of what Trick has done in the past. I think he's had guys that he just constantly fed, and that plateau. So maybe, but you've got some really good players at a bunch of different positions. So, and then if you got a guy that can get him the ball, which it seems like you do, then maybe you got a shot. But I don't know. I think they're going to spread the ball around a lot.
I think so. Well, you know what? It's closing in on midnight. I've got work tomorrow. You've got work tomorrow.
I do.
I've got the kids. I guess my wife agreed to have a movie night with the kids tomorrow night, so it's going to be a late night for us of watching probably like Hocus Pocus or something for like the 18th time, or Home Alone or something like that.
There you go. Those are both big hits in this house.
Yeah. We said, hey, Olivia, let's pick a movie we haven't seen before. And she was like, Shrek. Like, dude, we've watched Shrek 45 times. I mean, I'll watch it because it's a great movie, but let's try to do something else.
No.
But this was great after a massive Lightning win. It was much needed. Pretty cathartic, I'll be honest. I really appreciate you, Seth, kind of putting this together and breaking down the film. We'll have more throughout the off season. If anybody else decides to show up, maybe we'll have some. If we get that JUCO offensive lineman, maybe we break down some O-line tape. Who knows?
All right,
let's get into the nitty gritty. Yeah. So, who knows what's going to happen, but I appreciate you guys tuning in, listening as always. For Seth, I am Nathan Bond. Thank you for watching and listening to TDS Film Room, #AfterDark. Go Bulls.
Go Bulls, go Lightning. All right.